Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Around the nation right here, Jeff Waldorf. Welcome to the show. Got a great one for you guys today on this Tuesday. It's kind of like a Monday to me. Wasn't here yesterday, of course. But don't worry, we got a great show here. Now, let's see. We are doing a subscriber drive. So we're trying to get to 100,000 subscribers here on YouTube. We're fairly close. We are at, and I'm going to give you the total here in a second. We are at a total of 87,803 subscribers. So we're closing in on 88,000. We're also looking to get 10,000 followers on our Facebook page, facebook.com/TYTNation, of course. So we're going to try to get there. Do some more stuff on our Facebook page. More native videos, so that's going to be a lot of fun. So we're doing that, and yeah, we're doing that. What else can I say? So please like and share the stream wherever you're watching it. That helps out greatly. Okay, anyway, we got some interesting stories for you today. We will be talking about, of course, the economy, workers, and things like that. It's really important. What the Republicans are doing to the economy. We also have Larry Kudlow basically saying, yeah, we're going to come after your Social Security and Medicare. Fun. So we'll talk about that. We have Ted Cruz saying that Beto is going to steal your barbecue. Literally take the barbecue, like your barbecue sandwich or whatever, pork ribs, whatever you barbecue, steaks, burgers. He's going to take them right out of your hand and ban them in Texas. Fun. And a disastrous poll that goes along with that. Then we have a very important story, actually being broke by CNN, of all places, about Yemen. So wait. Yemen, they're going to talk about Yemen, CNN. And they're actually going to do fantastic reporting on this. Including where the bombs that are killing civilians coming from. Spoiler alert, they're coming from here. The United States. Nonetheless, we're going to talk about that. And then, of course, we also have more fallout from Kaepernick. We have people in the South, or organizations in the South, that is banning shoes, Nike shoes. And then if you guys want to stay around for it, we're going to talk about Trump's dick. I kid you not. We have something that has absolutely ruined Mario Kart for me forever, for the rest of time. So if you guys want to stick around for that story, it's going to be a doozy, but I'm saving it for last so I can get some more important news out of the way. So we'll start out, of course, with disastrous economic news and go from there, and then we'll end on the Trump mushroom story. Oh my god. Yeah, okay, anyway. Disaster. This is a day that that is something that I never thought I would under. Yes, it's true. We're going to be talking about that. Terrible. You never know what's going to happen, what you're going to wake up to in Trump's America. All right. Anyway, let's start out with something important. Let's get to the economy. Okay. So the midterms are on the way, and the Republican Party is, of course, gearing up for quite a fight. They've got some seats to defend, especially in the House. And of course, they're not only defending their own House seats, but they're also defending it at a time when you have the most unpopular president in modern history. Now, the thing about that is, Donald Trump's actually incredibly unpopular, despite the economy supposedly being really good. And I say supposedly because what the administration is saying about the economy and the metrics they're using to tout their so-called economic success, especially after the tax cuts, is not exactly representative of what's really going on in the economy. And I'm going to explain how that's actually going to what we've seen in terms of the so-called economic growth is actually a precursor to a crash. But anyway, Donald Trump, of course, and Donald Trump actually, and not so much Republicans, have been tweeting about how great the jobs numbers and economic growth is. However, as I said before, the Republicans, they're not running on that. Why is that? Well, it turns out that, for one, they actually haven't done anything for the economy that benefits regular people. Their chief economic achievement is tax cuts for the rich, which currently has poll ratings somewhere around 30%. Now, why is that? Well, look, voters know that the tax cuts didn't actually go to them. Most taxpayers received a very minuscule cut, while corporations and the wealthy got an enormous cut. They got a bonanza, and they put it in their pockets. In fact, the Wall Street Journal reported earlier this week that corporate profits are up 16.1% when compared to the second quarter of 2017, which is the largest year-to-year gain since the year of 2012. Now, why is that? I mean, corporate profits are enormously up. Well, one has to do with, of course, the tax cuts. We gave giant tax cuts to corporations, and guess what? Their profits went up. They didn't actually increase pay to workers. They didn't actually expand jobs, more so than what they were normally doing anyway in the economy. So they took that extra money and they put it back in their pocket. And that's what they do every time we give corporations massive tax cuts. And yet, for some reason, the Republicans think we're stupid and think we're going to be like, oh no, this time, if we just give them more tax cuts, then they're going to shower that wealth upon us. It's not true. It's not true. And I mentioned stock buybacks, of course. Now, we have had record stock buybacks. Now, does that mean that regular people are doing better? No. Look, in fact, more people are less well off now than they were before the recession. Now, the latest data compiled by the St. Louis Federal Reserve shows that while corporate profits have been steadily rising since the Great Recession of the late 2000s, workers' share of those profits is still below recession levels. Corporations are richer than they ever have been before, but regular workers, they haven't seen a dime of that. Not a damn thing. And that's not an accident. The reason that corporate profits are so high is exactly because they haven't shared that with their workers. Right now, we have a rigged economy where even though there is low unemployment, employers refuse to raise wages and keep pocketing more and more money. This, of course, has a terrible effect on the economy at large. The Urban Institute published a report earlier this week that found that 7,500 Americans surveyed, approximately 40% were unable to afford basic necessities like groceries, rent, and basic health care. Now, the LA Times broke down that study as well, and they found that nearly 1 in 4 Americans also struggle with food insecurity. It gets worse. More than 35% of families with at least one working adult reported difficulty meeting at least one basic need last year. And almost a quarter of all Americans experienced food insecurity at some point. 18% faced issues paying medical bills, and nearly as large a percentage reported skipping treatment for an ailment because they couldn't afford it. These numbers are shameful. Here we are. We're in the wealthiest country on earth, right? And we have half of all Americans not being able to afford the basics for survival, while corporate profits have soared by 16% in just one quarter. That's all while you have one party promising, oh, don't worry, if we cut corporate taxes even more, we give more money to the rich, your wages will end up going up. Well, what happened? That didn't happen. It didn't happen at all. Wages didn't even keep up with inflation. In fact, you had inflation at 2.8%, and wages for this year, for this last year, going up only by 2.7%. Terrible, man. Now, not only that, but I'm going to show you how stagnant your wages have actually been. And look, you guys already know, those of you who are actually living it. But nonetheless, I've got the numbers for you. U.S. Census data shows that for Americans between 25 and 34, median income stayed relatively flat at $34,000 a year between 1977 and 2016. Now, remember, this isn't because of Donald Trump. Donald Trump had nothing to do with that. In fact, we've had Democratic presidents. This is still happening under Democratic presidents. You still have that flat wages. So, and look, that is, even though, I should say during that whole period, you had the cost of college basically tripling along with median debt levels that went up, and everything went up. When adjusted for inflation, $34,000 in January 1977 amounts to $137,694 in 2016 dollars. So people understand they're getting screwed. Even if they don't know the numbers, they get it. And Republicans love to tell you that, no, it's the government that's the problem. They're the ones that are taking all your wealth. No, that's not true. It's the corporations who now, have all this wealth, and they refuse to share it with you. That's wealth that you helped create through your work. Look, there is only one outcome that happens when all the money flows to the top and people stop being able to afford basic things. You know what happens? It's a crash. A crash, and it's going to be devastating. Oh, but Jeff, you don't understand. The stock market's doing fantastic. I mean, look, and the GDP, we've got great GDP growth. What are you talking about? There's not going to be a crash. Here's the thing. The stock market is actually not a good indicator at the economic health of the overall country. It's great when you're looking at Wall Street. Their economic health is great. It's fantastic. They're doing amazing. And that's why there are so many pundits, of course, especially on the right, that are telling you, no, the economy is fantastic. Every guy that I know is getting fabulously wealthy off the economy. What are you talking about? What? Like, you're saying that it's bad for people? No, it's fantastic. All the friends that I have on Wall Street, they're doing great. You get out of here with that commie talk. But look, in reality, on Main Street, we're doing terrible. Not only that, as I said before, the GDP is a terrible indicator. Those things by themselves, you can't just look at either one of those things by themselves and say that the economy is doing great. You also have to look at wages as well. You also have to work at, as I said, unemployment as well. You have to take all these different factors in when you're looking at the economy. And right now, wages are stagnant. The economy is basically running on what we're calling a sugar high of tax cuts and stock buybacks. There is a short-term gain, and that's what we're seeing. But long-term, it is unsustainable. We are right now inflating a bubble in the stock market. And you know what bubbles do? They burst. It happened in 2008. And it's 2018 now, and guess what? We haven't changed a damn thing. We had Republicans and Democrats both coming together to chip away at Dodd-Frank. The banks are actually bigger than they were before, and they're taking more systemic risk, all while regular people who were destroyed during the recession, they barely recovered. These people are no longer able to afford things on their own without borrowing more money. Borrowing for mortgages, borrowing for student loans, borrowing for cars, borrowing for a lot of things that have seen the prices increase, all while their wages have remained stagnant. This is not a good situation. This is a terrible situation. And now you have Republicans that are seeing this looming crisis and are going, you know what? We're going to call for more tax cuts. That is an additional $3.8 trillion in tax cuts. They want to make a lot of them permanent. The Tax Policy Center on that found that that proposal would give a substantially bigger tax break to the richest families over those in the middle class. Surprise! The richest 1% of filers would see an average tax cut, an additional tax cut to what they already have, which was around $60,000. They're going to see an extra $40,000 in tax cuts. The middle income earners, the middle 20%, would see an average tax cut of $980, according to that Tax Policy Center. We are entering into a perfect economic storm of disaster. And the Republicans, they know it's going to happen. They see it. And they're like, don't care. What we're going to do is we're going to perform this one last heist for ourselves and our donors before it all comes crashing down. Because at the end of the day, they don't work for you. They work for their donors. They work for themselves. Okay. Following news that the deficit has increased by quite a bit thanks to the Trump tax cuts, now the administration is looking on how to plug those deficit holes, and of course, they're going to do so by coming for your earned benefits. Yes, they're coming for your Social Security and your Medicare. Now, White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow said that, quote, we should, I'm sorry, that's not a quote, that we should expect cuts in entitlement programs should Republicans continue to control Congress. Here's his quote: we have to be tougher on spending. And of course, these are in remarks to the Economic Club of New York. Now, he also added that government spending was the reason for the wider budget deficits, not the Republican-led tax cuts that went into effect this year. Oh, no, it's not tax cuts. They have nothing to do with more of a deficit. We just cut our income. But that has absolutely nothing to do with the deficit whatsoever, man. Okay. Now, here's the thing. That's insanity. How can you say that cutting your revenue will not add to a deficit? Growth, economic growth. What economic growth? The Trump tax cuts have had literally no effect on the economic growth of this country. It's insanity, right? Insanity. But like these $1 trillion tax cuts, which have cost somewhere around $1.4 to $1.8 trillion over 10 years, or will cost that much over 10 years, is somehow not at fault. But your $700 in Social Security. Well, I mean, that's the reason we have such a gigantic deficit. We have to do something about that. I have to note that Social Security doesn't add a penny to the deficit. Nonetheless, they want to continue to say, oh, no, we've got to cut Social Security because it's going bankrupt and because, of course, that's the reason that we have such high deficits. In fact, here's the thing. Quote, we're going to run deficits of about 4 to 5% of GDP for the next year. I'd rather they were lower, but it's not a catastrophe. Going down the road, of course, we'd like to slim that down as much as possible, and we'll work at it. And he stated that the biggest factor for revenue was economic growth. A quicker pace, he said, will bring more revenue, adding that President Trump's economic policies were aimed at boosting the U.S. growth rate. Again, that hasn't happened. And here's the thing. They're not saying it quite outright because it would be political suicide. But when they say, oh, no, we've got to rein in spending, especially when it comes to entitlement spending, well, we all know what that means. Look, this is the plan, okay? Look, when it comes to economic growth, you cannot make an argument that the tax cuts have actually made economic growth better. If you're looking at the stock market and the GDP, you're not looking at the whole picture, because those two things are not by themselves a good metric for the economic well-being of this country. People like Kudlow are failing to take wages into consideration, which, again, another promise of the Trump tax cuts was, well, if we cut taxes for corporations, then they're going to raise your wages. That way we don't need a minimum wage. We don't need to raise the minimum wage. No, we're just going to cut taxes for corporations because they're going to do it themselves. Did that happen? Not at all. There were no significant wage gains as a result of these tax cuts. But see, that's not an accident. Low wages are why corporate profits are so high. They gained, in just this quarter, 16.1% corporate profits. That's not an accident. These companies, they're not making more sales. They're buying back their own stock. They're artificially inflating the value of their companies, and they're not paying their workers more. They're stuffing that money in their pockets. And the thing is, the CEOs, they are now cashing out their stock options. They buy back their own stock, and then they cash out. They make millions. And they're doing that because they know this is unsustainable. And nonetheless, they are plowing ahead with tax cuts 2.0. Kudlow said on that he did not expect the Congress would be able to make the Trump administration's recent individual tax cuts permanent before the November 6th midterm congressional elections. He said, I don't think it will get through the whole Congress before the election, but added that making the personal tax cuts permanent is, quote, a good message, and disagreed with the forecast that they would further increase budget deficits. But they will. They will increase budget deficits. That's what happens when you cut revenue, you get less money. But again, Kudlow, he knows he can do simple math. And he says, I don't care. You might think of him and think, he's an idiot. We know tax cuts increase the deficit. It is simple math. But see, Kudlow isn't dumb. He knows that he is part of the biggest robbery of the American public this century. And that's what this is. These corporate tax cuts, they are a gigantic robbery. And part of that robbery includes that when we run out of, well, we're never going to run out of money, but when deficits get so high, you're going to have Republicans saying, well, we need to rob your Social Security and Medicare to pay for it. That is part of that robbery. They're going to take it from you and put it into their own pockets, and of course, into the pockets of their donors. The whole point is that they want to, well, they want to privatize Social Security. They want to privatize Medicare. They want to give it over to the corporations. And then, well, then they're going to laugh all the way to the bank with your money. So that's what you're going to get with a Republican Congress. Elections have consequences. Okay. Speaking of elections, let's go to Ted Cruz. So one of the things Texas is known for is its famous barbecue. But there is one Texas senator out there that is warning people that if his opponent wins, he will ban barbecue. It makes no sense. But let's get with the story here. Appearing at a packed campaign event in a restaurant in Texas, Senator Ted Cruz warned the crowd that if Beto gets elected, say goodbye to your barbecue. Quote, when I got here, someone told me that even PETA was protesting and giving out barbecue tofu, which sounds terrible. Anyway, he says, so I've got to say they summed up the entire election. If Texas elects a Democrat, they're going to ban barbecue across the state of Texas. You want to talk about an issue to mobilize the people, and I'm talking to everybody. So I want to thank PETA, and I do want to tell PETA that if you're going to have to disclose to the FEC that by coming in and protesting and giving away tofu, that you have given an in-kind contribution to my campaign by demonstrating just how bad things can get. This is, look, okay, you could say he's joking, but I'm going to come back later and kind of poke a hole in that. But the overall point is, if Beto wins, goodbye barbecue. Say goodbye. Say goodbye. Say goodbye to your pork ribs. Say goodbye to your hamburgers and your steaks. It'll be gone if Beto wins his seat, which he doesn't even have the power to do. Nonetheless, that's what he's saying. Again, Jeff, he must be joking, right? Well, in a tweet on Sunday, he wrote, PETA protested our town hall yesterday, handing out barbecue tofu. We were glad to welcome them, but it illustrates the stakes of the election. If Beto wins, barbecue will be illegal. Again, barbecue will be illegal. I don't know. Look, maybe it's a running joke. But man, it just seems like everything, desperation. and again, I know what he's trying to do. This is his campaign strategy all along. Paint Beto as the other. Oh no, he's not really a Texan. No, you can't be a liberal and actually win in Texas. I mean, that's crazy talk. Why not? Texas, look, there's a growing Latino population in Texas. There's a good chance that if you are a liberal, you can win in Texas. Now, look, that said, Beto's got a shot, but it is a little bit of a long shot. Newest poll came out that had Ted Cruz actually ahead, so by 9 points. So, look, I don't know. I still think Beto has a fairly good chance to unseat Ted Cruz. And maybe the strategy is actually working, because it's not as if Ted Cruz is likable. I mean, he's a very non-likable person, even among Republicans. Look, you had Lindsey Graham saying in the Senate that if somebody went in and shot Ted Cruz, that you couldn't convict the shooter. And that's in the floors of Congress. I'm just saying. Not very popular. Nonetheless, his campaign might actually be working to some extent. But anyway, now he also told a crowd of supporters, quote, "We are seeing tens of millions of dollars flooding into the state of Texas from liberals all over the country who desperately want to turn the state of Texas blue. They want us to be just like California, right down to tofu and silicon and dyed hair." Oh my God, dyed hair. The horror. Terrible thing. And silicon? Really? You mean very successful, gigantic corporations? I thought you'd love that in Texas. That doesn't make any sense. But look, again, there's that, oh, they want to turn us into California. California is the 5th largest economy in the world. They're actually doing fantastic. And yes, they do have a lot of problems. But they have the same kind of problems, especially in LA and San Francisco, that most big cities have. And that's, of course, gentrification and high home prices. But that's because there is a lot of success there. At least when it comes to these corporations. Now, speaking of corporations, Beto does not take corporate PAC money, unlike Ted Cruz, who has come crawling to Wall Street to beg for money. So look, it is all hands on deck in Texas. Republican politicians, and I did a story on this before, are lining up to try to support Cruz. You got Donald Trump. He's going to hold a rally for Ted Cruz. That should be very, very interesting. So we'll see what happens on that. But look, man, he's desperate. And it seems to be kind of working. Now there's more. Just to underscore how desperate Ted Cruz actually is. He also threw his wife under the bus in that same rally. He said, and by the way, I married me a California vegetarian. She's wonderful, but I brought her to the great state of Texas. Way to throw your wife under the bus there. Oh, yeah, no, she's a vegetarian. And vegetarians aren't welcome in Texas, except for my wife. She's great. Even though she's a tofu-eating Californian. Oops. You ever have any wonder why Ted Cruz is so deeply unpopular? This guy's like a wax figure come to life with all the personality of tossed salad. He is your standard smarmy, sleazy politician. And look, the thing is, even though he seems to be up in the polls, this attack means he can't really find a whole lot else to hit Beto on. He's dug up old photos of Beto skateboarding, being in a band, even his mugshot. I don't know about you, but that stuff actually kind of makes Beto seem a bit cooler. Especially considering, or at least compared to Ted Cruz. Although, Ted Cruz, again, it's not a great comparison because Ted Cruz is so deeply unlikable. Deeply hated by the establishment, and I think a lot of voters in Texas who may still vote for him while holding his nose. So, look, I hope we get rid of Ted Cruz. I hope Beto can get it done. Because wouldn't it be amazing if he removed Ted Cruz? We never have to hear his smarmy voice or see his face ever again in Congress. That would be amazing. But that's up for the Texas voters to decide. We'll see which way they go. Okay. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a quick break. Then we'll come back. We've got that Yemen story. And then we have the Nike bans in Alabama and Mississippi. So we'll come back with those. If you haven't already, please like and share this stream. Also, consider subscribing. And if you have a super chat, I'll read those after the break as well. So do that. We'll come back right after this break and stay right here around the nation. Welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here. Jeff Waldorf with you. I have a super chat that I want to read before I get back into the stories. Mark Ortiz asks, anybody else freak out about a dumps FEMA alert? Yes. In fact, there is actually a big story about the president who is going to be able to use the FEMA alert system to text people. Like, to text everyone in the country. Can you imagine Donald Trump having the ability to send everyone a text? No, not interested. Not interested at all. So right now, a little bit of a controversy. But I do not feel comfortable with Donald Trump being able to text my phone. Like, that's the last thing I want to hear about. Or the last thing I want to happen. So, yikes. Anyway, thank you, Mark, for that super chat. We are now at 87,806 subscribers, so continuing to push towards 100,000. If you like what you see, please subscribe. Okay, anyway. Let's go to one of the stories. Important stuff. Bombs in Yemen. Okay. Now, CNN here with an excellent report on the U.S. involvement in the civil war in Yemen. Now, last month, a CNN investigation had found remnants of a U.S.-made bomb at the scene of an airstrike that had left dozens of school children dead. Now, again, this is the civil war in Yemen. Right now, the United States is assisting the Saudi-led government, or I should say the Saudi-led attacks on Houthi rebels in Yemen. Now, an independent Yemen-based human rights group called Mawatana has given CNN exclusive access to a trove of documents that show fragments of U.S.-manufactured bombs at the scene of a string of other incidents since 2015, when the civil war began. In each of those cases, civilians were either killed or put at risk, and CNN did its own independent verification as well, including going to weapons experts and showing them the pictures of these, of course, serial numbers on these bombs or these bomb fragments. Now, Mawatana, which documents violations by all parties in the conflict, used its network of trained field researchers to photograph evidence at the scene of some of these strikes. Now, the group consulted weapons experts to identify the weapons used from serial numbers found on the fragments. So I'm going to get to that later on and give you some examples here. But first, let's just give you a refresher of what the United States is actually doing in Yemen. Now, right now, we're supposed to be doing a support role, which is, of course, refueling Saudi fighter jets. Now, the United States says it doesn't make targeting decisions for the coalition, but supports its operations through billions of dollars in arms sales, the refueling of Saudi combat aircraft, and some sharing of intelligence, although there are other reports that contradict the idea that we are not making targeting decisions for the Saudi-led coalition. I think actually we are. They just don't want to admit it because a lot of these strikes have ended up killing civilians. Now, here's the other thing, right? So we're selling these weapons. Our weapons manufacturers here in the United States, through the State Department, are making deals with Saudi Arabia to sell billions of dollars in arms to Saudi Arabia. And then, of course, they use these weapons to murder civilians. Doesn't that kind of mean that we are partly responsible as a country for the deaths of those innocent civilians? I would think so. And so does Mawatana. Their chairman, Radia El Mutawakkil, told CNN that the U.S. bore a legal and moral responsibility for selling weapons to the Saudi-led coalition, and that is worsening the conflict in Yemen. It's not making it better. Bombing the shit out of Yemen is not making Yemen a better place. It's making it worse. Right now, a lot of the country is literally starving to death. Not only that, but again, you have lots of reports of civilian deaths going on here. So what we're doing is we're not sending humanitarian aid. No. We're literally supplying them with the bombs that they use to murder civilians. Now, Mutawakil told CNN, in more than one way and during more than one incident, remnants of American weapons have been found at the site of airstrikes that killed civilians. Yemeni civilians are dying every day because of this war, and you, she means America, are fueling this war, so stop fueling this war. It is a shame that financial interests are worth more than the blood of innocent people. That is an incredibly strong statement right there. All they're asking is, just stop giving the Saudis weapons. Now, why are we doing these arms deals with Saudi Arabia in the first place? Let's be honest, it's the petrodollar. We have deals with Saudi Arabia so we can get access to cheap oil. It's the same thing that it's always been when it comes to that region of the world. We're friends with some pretty despicable, terrible governments in exchange for natural resources. Now, imagine what we could do with our foreign policy, how much better our foreign policy could be if we didn't have those commitments, if we didn't need their fossil fuels. But unfortunately, our corporations, well, they've got to have more, they got to make more money. Raytheon's got to make more money. They're a defense contractor. And ExxonMobil also has got to make more money. Our oil companies have to make more money as well. So, and it is sad that we are putting that money above human lives. So now I want to go to some of the fragments that they found. Now, Mauritania researchers found the outer shell of a CBU-58, a bomb. That is a 430 kilogram US-made cluster bomb. Now wait, cluster bombs are supposed to be illegal. Well, not in the United States. According to Human Rights Watch, the United States exported 1,000 cluster bombs of this type to Saudi Arabia between 1970 and 1995. And the U.S. is one of 7 countries that include China, Israel, Iran, North Korea, Russia, and Saudi Arabia that have rejected a ban on the sale or use of cluster bombs. We're in great company, aren't we? We're in the company of some of the most repressive regimes on the face of the planet that have said, oh, cluster bombs? No. We love cluster bombs. We love dropping cluster bombs on people, especially in the Middle East. This one in particular, the one that they found, hit a farmer's home. Killed 10 civilians. That's what we're doing. Those are our weapons. Now, not only that, CNN also found the CAGE number 96214 on a piece of shrapnel that belonged to a bomb manufactured by Raytheon. Now, that piece was part of a control system for a GBU-12 laser-guided bomb. That particular bomb that they found and documented ended up killing a family of 15, which included 12 children. The youngest was a 1-year-old boy. An eyewitness told Mauritania, quote, their bodies were torn to shreds. Flesh was hanging from the plants and the trees. There's more. There's more. Saudi-led coalition forces also targeted a wedding party in the Bani Ka district in Haja Governorate. And according to Mauritania, the strike killed 21 civilians, including 11 children, injured another 97, 48 of them children. That bomb that hit a wedding party is also tied to Raytheon. You know how much Raytheon made in its most recent quarter? Its 2018 net sales are now going to be in the range of $26.5 to $27 billion. That's their sales. And they're going to get billions in profit. And this, and the reason that I told you about the bombs and where they hit, well, that profit was made from their sales to Saudi Arabia. They got money Saudi Arabia got bombs, and they dropped these bombs on these innocent people. That is a direct effect for these arms sales. A direct effect. You want to talk about terror? You want to talk about exporting terror? The United States, through our arms sales, indiscriminate arms sales to other countries that are performing atrocities at this moment, that is an export of terror. These corporations that we allow and that we facilitate the sales of weapons from and to countries like Saudi Arabia are, look, again, incredibly immoral. They use these weapons, they drop them on innocent civilians. You want to talk about morality? You want to talk about terrorism? We're feeding terrorism. We're making it worse. Our biggest export is not democracy. It's not freedom. It is war. It is death. And it's all done so that somebody sitting in an office can make an extra buck. Welcome to America. That's depressing. Well, I brought you that story because somebody needed to talk about it. And so that's unfortunately the reality of what's going on in America and around the world. Great reporting by CNN talking about that and doing that report and independently verifying that these pieces of shrapnel are actually parts of bombs that we have manufactured here in America. So all credit to them for that. I know I give CNN a lot of shit, but that is a top-notch report. Okay. Let's move on to something a little bit more different. All right. The fallout from Colin Kaepernick's Nike ad continues as two heavyweight organizations decide that they're going to ban employees from wearing Nike apparel. KWTX is reporting that the Texas Farm Bureau, an organization that represents the interests of agricultural producers and rural communities, informed employers that they can no longer wear Nike apparel to work over the new Kaepernick ad. The nonprofit sent an email to workers explaining their decision, writing, quote, "There is a wide range of viewpoints in the Nike controversy. Texas Farm Bureau and affiliated company employees are asked not to wear Nike-branded apparel while representing the companies. We are choosing to remove our companies from this controversy by discontinuing the use of Nike-branded apparel for business purposes. The attire you choose on your own time is a personal matter." Oh man, so much controversy surrounding this ad. Really? What was the controversy started for? It was started by the far right. They started equating kneeling as some sort of attack on freedom, despite that act, the act of kneeling, being one of those freedoms that you're able to enjoy as an American. Just saying, it's a little strange. Meanwhile, in a statement to the Associated Press, the Mississippi Department of Public Safety, their commissioner was a bit more direct. They said the agency, which oversees the Highway Patrol, Bureau of Narcotics, Bureau of Investigation, Office of Homeland Security, the State Crime Lab, and the State Medical Examiner, would no longer purchase goods from Nike. Here's the reason. Quote, "As Commissioner of the Department of Public Safety, I will not support vendors who do not support law enforcement and our military." Wait a minute. It's never about the military. You made it about the military. It wasn't really about law enforcement as a concept in general. Now, it's actually about how black people get treated by members of law enforcement and maybe making the point of we should actually, I don't know, train people better, train police better so that they don't shoot unarmed black people. That would be a great thing. But of course, that is construed as you're attacking freedom, democracy, police, and the military. Nope, that's actually not true. But anyway, so here we have the Texas Farm Bureau and the Mississippi Department of Public Safety. Man, Nike is going to get hurt so bad by this. And I'm going to show you how much the department, especially in Mississippi, has paid Nike over the years. A spokesman said, the department had bought shoes, shirts, and tactical training uniforms from the sportswear companies in the past. Now, how much? According to an Associated Press search of the database that documents state purchases, Mississippi had spent a grand total of $0 on Nike products in the past fiscal year. Oops. I don't know if Nike will ever recover from that boycott, man, from that ban of Nike gear. Man, whew, $0. That's gonna hurt. I mean, it's not like their stock price hasn't exploded since the ad. Oh, wait, it has? Oh, it's actually gone up. Oh, man, conservatives with their boycotts. Has there ever been one boycott from conservatives that has actually worked? I'm just saying. But anyway, now Mississippi Governor Phil Bryant said in a separate statement about this, quote, I support the commissioner's decision. And the commissioner has the authority to choose which companies his agency does business with. And, quote, it's not going to be a company that pays an individual who has slandered our fine men and women in law enforcement. That's funny, right? Oh, slandered. No, he silently kneeled. That's not slander. That's, I'm going to silently kneel for the anthem and not say anything. He's literally not saying anything. And when people asked him, it's like, well, I'm protesting police brutality. That's it. That's it. Look, and the irony here is this comes right after Botham Shemjan, who was murdered in his own apartment by a police officer who said she thought she was in her own apartment. That was her claim. Not only that, you have this happening after Daniel Hambrick, who was gunned down by a Nashville cop as Hambrick was running away. And we've seen this before. We've seen, if you run away from a police officer, he gets the right to murder you. Since when is running away a crime punishable by death? This also follows Sandra Bland, Terrence Crutcher, Eric Garner, and we can go down a list of people who were unarmed, people who were murdered by cops. Pointing out how police seem to be killing a lot of unarmed black people is not slander. It's pointing out a serious problem with law enforcement. And more so, the training for law enforcement. Now, I know there's a lot of people that want to put the onus on black people. Don't run from the police. Don't run from the police. Don't, follow every single instruction to the letter. Well, tell that to the guy who was murdered in his own car for following orders. This is a guy who had a legal weapon inside of his glove box. He told the police officer, hey, I do have a legal weapon. It's in my glove box. I'm not going to reach for it. And the cop shot him anyway. And look, it's not just black people who are getting shot. There was also another video of a man who had something to drink, who was stopped by a police officer in the hallway. And this police officer was giving confusing and contradicting commands. And the guy couldn't follow them because they were contradictory. And guess what? He was shot dead by the police officer. This happens all the time. Oh, but no, if you point that out, you're slandering police officers. Right. Look, here's the thing. Police need to be trained better, but they also need, I think, stricter hiring requirements. If you can hire somebody off the street and give them like a 2-week course on, basically how to use their weapon, that's not good. That's terrible training. That's going to lead to situations like this. Maybe we should actually do something about it. Now, look, the Texas Farm Bureau, getting back to this, and Mississippi are just the latest entities to ban Nike purchases. You have Kenner, LA Mayor Ben Zahn, who banned his city's recreation department from purchasing Nikes before reversing his decision after a public outcry. Tennessee State Senator and Chairman of the state's Finance, Ways and Means Committee is also pressuring Tennessee's state-funded colleges to ban Nikes from campuses. Notice where a lot of these bans are taking place. Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama. Look, I'm just saying, I don't think it's a coincidence that these bans are happening in cities in the South controlled by Republicans. And it happened as soon as a black person became the face of their ads. I wonder what this is all about. This isn't about the flag. This isn't about the troops in the military. It's about racism. And the sooner you realize that, the sooner you understand why there is such a vehement pushback against Colin Kaepernick. Okay. I'm going to take a break here. One last break, and we're going to come back with the Donald Trump Mario Kart toadstool story, which I'm sure some of you are going to be incredibly grossed out by, as I am reading this story, but I'm going to do it anyway. Consider it a public service. So anybody who's uncomfortable with discussing President Trump's junk should probably leave now. So, okay. All right. So we'll come back with that story if y'all still here. We'll be back. All right, guys, welcome back to the show. Run the Nation right here, Jeff Waldorf. Okay, so we are on a subscriber drive, trying to get to 100,000. So if you haven't already, please subscribe. We are at 87,811. So we're getting closer to 88,000 and closer to 100,000. Make sure to also like our Facebook page, facebook.com/TYTNation. Follow me on Twitter at Jeff's Politics or at ATN on TYT. Okay. No super chats, which is sad. But let's get into the, maybe, I don't know, the kind of small story of the day. But I guess I'll get into the details in a minute here. But oh boy. Earlier today, the internet got more than it bargained for with the release of Stormy Daniels' new book, Full Disclosure. And boy, is that title accurate. It is on the mark. And this book is filled with quite a bit of salacious stuff. Now, according to The Guardian, and I'll get to that salacious stuff later, but look, this is basically Stormy Daniels writing about her reaction to Donald Trump, and we'll start with that. Of him winning primaries and the potential of him becoming president. Now, Stormy Daniels, apparently, whose name is Stephanie Clifford, of course, she could not believe that Donald Trump was actually winning primaries in the Republican Party. In fact, former castmates, she writes, whom she had not heard from in years, but who had heard her story about sleeping with Trump in 2006, would call her up to marvel at the news. I would say, Daniels writes, it will never happen. He doesn't even want to be president. Now, that's interesting. Now, look, I think that President Trump, I think at first, yeah, he wanted the news coverage. And what's the biggest way to get your name out there? Even more so than what he already had. Running for president. It was the natural, I guess you could say, evolution of his grifting career. Oh, I'm going to run for president. And then I'm going to get like cable TV news deals and all that. It'll be great. We'll do Trump TV. That was something that we talked about prior to the election. Okay. But anyway, she says, but in reality, he didn't want to be president. And he doesn't have the mental fortitude to be president, for one. And this wasn't something that interested him. Now, we've heard from later books where from different authors, basically the same thing, that eventually Trump got used to the power and he's like, I kind of like this. Speaking in front of crowds. The only thing that he really likes about being president is, for one, saying that, hey, I'm the president, and speaking in front of crowds of adoring fans. He's always loved that. It feeds his ego, right? But anyway, that said, as Trump kept winning, Daniels writes, she began to think she might be in danger. The story she had to tell about Trump seemed more sensitive the more he won, and she had already been threatened once, years earlier, and warned never to tell the story about President Trump, she's claimed. Those moments of fear and doubt and Daniels' decision on the eve of the election to sign a $130,000 hush agreement hang around a detailed description, I'm reading from The Guardian here, of Daniels' alleged tryst with Trump at a celebrity golf tournament in Lake Tahoe, California. Now, that detail, she goes into terrible detail about that encounter. Now, first, she continued to answer Trump's many phone calls over the next year after that encounter in the hopes that he would make good on his promise to put her on his reality TV show, The Apprentice. Trump suggested, and this shows who he is, that a cheat could be arranged to allow her to survive more episodes of the show. Quote, we'll figure out a way to get you the challenges beforehand, and we can devise your technique. She writes, he was going to have me cheat, and it was 100% his idea. So stop right there. That's who Donald Trump is. So again, we already know about the earlier, sexual encounters that they had, right? So here's Trump's thought process on this. Oh, you had sex with me, so guess what? I'm going to let you cheat. And you're going to cheat, and it's going to be fantastic because I'm going to let you win, okay? Speaking of the sex, whenever she saw Trump on television for years afterwards, Daniels writes, an internal monologue would play out. Quote, I had sex with that. I'd say to myself, ugh. Oh, indeed. And the details are worse than you could imagine. So here's what happened. So Trump's bodyguard had invited Daniels to dinner at the Lake Tahoe or after the Lake Tahoe golf thing. Now, that invitation turned out to be to Trump's penthouse. During that visit, that's where apparently everything went down. And again, if you're not interested in knowing what Trump's junk is like, I suggest you tune out right now. She writes in a description of alleged events that Daniels has disclosed previously, but which in the book are rendered with new and lurid detail. She describes Trump's penis as, quote, smaller than average, but not freakishly small. Ugh. I mean, look, if you ask Trump, everything is all right. It's great down there. It's tremendous. I have no problems. This is something that played out, by the way, talking about, this is the first time that Trump's junk has come up in the news cycle. So, again, with that Marco Rubio saying, oh, he's got tiny hands. If he's got tiny hands, he must have tiny something else. I assure you, everything is all right down there. Okay, then. Well, here's Stormy Daniels saying, no, it's kind of small. Like, not freakishly small, but still small. There's more. There's more detail. And I'm just going to read it. Quote, he knows he has an unusual penis. It is a huge mushroom head, like a toadstool. Ugh. I lay there, annoyed that I was getting fucked by a guy with yeti pubes and a dick like the mushroom character in Mario Kart. It may have been the least impressive sex I'd ever had, but clearly he didn't share that opinion. Look, man, she wrote it. I read it. I gave you guys warning. Look, here's the thing. I didn't think it's possible, but I think this may have just ruined Mario Kart forever. And I actually enjoy Mario Kart. Now, it ain't happening. But look, I want to attempt to make some sort of a point here, right? So bear with me. So now you have Bob Woodward's book. You've got the anonymous op-ed. And now you have this. They all say the same thing. That Donald Trump is an idiot man-child with no attention span. And of course this adds that he might have a little bit of penis envy. Just saying. Daniels' alleged relationship with Trump had included, and this is one point that kind of backs up what the Woodward book was saying. She writes in which she was with Trump in a hotel room watching Shark Week on cable television when he receives a phone call from none other than Hillary Clinton. Weird. Now this is, again, 2007. Hillary Clinton's running against Barack Obama for the Democratic nomination. Now, Daniels writes, quote, to make it crazier, Hillary Clinton called. He had a whole conversation about the race, repeatedly mentioning something about our plan. What plan? Our plan. Remember, he's talking to Hillary Clinton at the time. What plan? This is actually more curious. This is actually better than the junk stuff. Because what plan did he have with Hillary Clinton that involved Hillary Clinton? That's super weird. That is super, super weird. But to underscore how much of a child the president actually is, or the would-be president is, she noted that even though he was on the phone with Hillary, his attention kept going back to the sharks. Because of course he did. He has no attention span. Even talking about our plan with Hillary Clinton, which again, I don't know. I don't know what that plan is going to be. Maybe we're on the results of that plan. I don't know. But nonetheless. Oh yeah, no, he couldn't pay attention. He had to go and pay attention to the sharks. He has no attention span. This is why people like Gary Cohn could steal documents off his desk. And He just wouldn't know that they were missing. He didn't know. He didn't know. A child. He is not mentally fit, not mentally stable. Oh. If it's not clear by now, I think history is not going to be kind to, you know, the character of Donald Trump. Could you imagine any other president dealing with some of the stuff that he's done? It's unfathomable, and yet it seems to be happening. And what do Republicans do? They circle the wagons to protect this guy. I don't think we're ever going to see anything quite like this again, because I have a feeling that when Trump goes down, the rest of the Republican Party is going to go with him. And to be clear, he's not going to go anything. He's not going to go down for anything like this. Oh, no, this is nothing. Like, back in the day, like if a Democratic president had multiple books coming out, including one that talked about his penis and how he was having sex with a porn star while already married, basically, having an affair with a porn star, well, they would have been impeached today. But that's not going to happen. That's not what's going to bring him down. What would actually bring him down is his brazen corruption. I think that's what's going to happen. But nonetheless, fascinating. Look, 2 books and an op-ed in the space of less than a month. Wow. I'm telling you, shit is getting crazy. I think TikTok, this president does not have much time left. Because you think it's bad now. Stuff has been trickling out over the last year. Now, it's not a trickle, it's a flood. And it's going to keep getting worse and worse and worse and worse. You think this is bad? Nope. There's probably going to be something worse. So, everybody get your popcorn. Okay. That's it. Man. Okay. Yeah, that's all I got for you. So, thanks, guys. All right. So, if you haven't already, please give us a like and share. Having a lot of fun times here on today's show. We're going to be getting out of here. So, we'll see you guys tomorrow. Same time, same place. Make sure to suggest stories if you haven't already. If you see something you want to have me cover, you can send it. Twitter, Facebook. Please like our Facebook page. Please like us here. And subscribe. All right, guys. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night to you, AT Nation. We'll see you tomorrow.